Did you know Michael Jackson wrote one of the funkiest songs on Off the Wall completely by himself? At just 20 years old, most people give all the credit for that album to Quincy Jones and Rod Temperton, and they deserve it. But Workin' Day and Night was Michael's own creation, and it tells a different story. He built that track from scratch. The groove, the rhythm, the layered backing vocals, all of it came from him. He stacked his own voice over and over in the studio until the song felt like a full band locked into one pulse. That is not something a teen idol does. That is something a craftsman does. What makes it even more remarkable is what it pointed toward. The same obsessive attention he poured into Workin' Day and Night is exactly what he would later use to build Thriller from the inside out. Off the Wall was not just Michael following the lead of great producers. He was already thinking like one. He was already one. Did you know that Michael Jackson, one of the most famous men alive, refused to sit down and eat a meal with his own father? Not once. Not ever. Not even after selling hundreds of millions of records. Joe Jackson ran the Jackson family like a factory. Rehearsals instead of recess. Belts instead of bedtimes. Michael once said that seeing his father walk into a room made his stomach drop. That feeling never went away. Not when he was 7. Not when he was 40. So Michael found small ways to protect himself. He couldn't undo the past. He couldn't take back the childhood that was taken from him. But he could control one quiet thing. Who sat at his table? Who broke bread with him? Who got that closeness? Joe never did. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was just a chair that stayed empty. And sometimes the loudest thing a person can say is exactly that. Nothing at all.
Did you know Michael Jackson and Prince never actually feuded? Not really. Not the way the tabloids told it. The media needed a war. Two black superstars at the top of the charts in the 1980s made for a better story if they hated each other. So that became the story. Record labels fed it. Magazines printed it. Fans picked sides. But both men knew something the public didn't. They both grew up performing before they could even read. They both handed their childhoods over to an industry that chewed up children and called it stardom. Prince once said Michael was the most disciplined artist he had ever seen. Michael quietly kept tabs on everything Prince released. Their few real interactions were brief, but respectful. Two people who understood a very specific kind of loneliness that fame creates. The kind where millions of people know your name and almost nobody actually knows you. The rivalry was a product, packaged, sold, and consumed. The truth was quieter than that, and far more human.
Did you know that Michael Jackson never learned how to drive a car? Not at 16, not at 30, not even at 50 years old. From the time he was 5, someone else always took the wheel. A driver, a manager, a handler. He was cargo, precious, talented, and completely dependent. Most teenagers remember the moment they first drove alone. That feeling of the open road. No one watching, just you and the wind and the freedom to go anywhere. Michael never had that moment. While other kids were sneaking out, getting lost, making mistakes, he was being shuttled from stage to stage, city to city, living inside a schedule someone else made for him. He once said he felt like he grew up in a prison made of spotlights. He craved the ordinary, the mundane, the boring, beautiful things most people take for granted. A drive to nowhere, a wrong turn, a moment that belonged only to him. He had everything the world wanted, and almost nothing that he needed. Did you know that Michael Jackson was dragged to Studio 54 as a teenager, while everyone around him was doing drugs and having sex? Picture this, 1978. Michael is barely 20 years old, still painfully shy, still that little boy from Gary, Indiana, who just wanted to play with toys and watch cartoons. But there he was, standing in the most notorious nightclub in New York City. Cocaine on every table, half-naked bodies dancing, adults doing things he didn't understand. While everyone else was getting high and hooking up, Michael would just stand there, confused, out of place, wishing he was anywhere else. He didn't drink, he didn't do drugs, he didn't want to be there. But fame had rules, and one of those rules was showing up to places where childhood had no business being. Diana Ross would drag him along, thinking she was helping his career. But all Michael wanted was to go home, put on his pajamas, and read comic books. He was a boy trapped in a man's world, and nobody seemed to notice how lost he looked. Did you know that Michael Jackson found the mother he never had in Diana Ross? When Michael was just 10 years old, performing with the Jackson 5, he met Diana backstage at the Apollo Theater. While other adults saw him as a tiny money-making machine, Diana saw something different. She saw a scared little boy. Michael's own childhood had been stolen by spotlights and stages. His father was strict. His mother was distant. But Diana wrapped him in the warmth he'd been searching for his whole life. She would hold him when he cried after difficult performances. She taught him how to move on stage with grace. She protected him from the adults who wanted to use him. Michael once said Diana was the only person who made him feel safe to just be a kid. When he was nervous, he would call her. When he was lonely, she would visit. When the world felt too heavy, Diana reminded him he was more than just a performer. She was his refuge, his role model, his chosen mother, the love that saved him when no one else would. Did you know that Michael Jackson cried at the end of every single take of She's Out of My Life? Every single one. The song was written by Tom Baylor, and it was originally inspired by his breakup with Karen Carpenter. When Michael heard it for the first time, something in those lyrics hit him differently. He connected to that feeling of losing someone and not knowing how to let go. So every time he stepped up to the microphone and sang it through to the end, he broke down in tears. Not once or twice. Every take. Producer Quincy Jones had a choice to make. He could push for a clean, controlled finish, or he could keep what was real. He kept it real. That quiet weeping you hear fading out at the very end of the track is Michael actually crying in the studio. No acting, no production trick, just a 21-year-old feeling every word he sang. Quincy Jones later said the tears were too honest to cut, and he was right. Did you know Michael Jackson covered every mirror in his homes with sheets and tape? Not because he was vain, because he couldn't stand to look at himself. From the time he was small, his father Joseph told him he was ugly, called him names, pointed at his nose, said it in front of other people, like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing to Michael. Those words burrowed deep. They grew into something dark. And by the time the whole world was watching him, he already believed he was something broken, something wrong to look at. So he hid the mirrors. Every single one. Think about that for a moment. A man beloved by hundreds of millions of people. A man whose face was on every magazine on earth. Couldn't stand his own reflection. That's not a celebrity quirk. That's a wound that never healed. His father gave him the world's greatest gift and took something precious in return. Michael never got to see what the rest of us saw.